Good morning. As Kerry said, my name is Gareth Johns. I lead the IT training service at Cardiff Met. We develop and deliver IT training for both staff and students. What I'd like to talk to you about today is certification for IT training, because we've tried different options in terms of the certification. We've tried Microsoft Office Specialist, Microsoft Technology Associate. We've looked at digital badges and here validated activities. And we've tried different approaches to delivering the training as well. We've delivered it through traditional face-to-face IT training sessions. We've developed e-learning. We've combined the two in a blended approach. And we've offered certification for those learners who are willing to learn independently. So despite how that may sound, we haven't taken a scattergun approach to it and thrown it all at the wall and seen what's stuck. There has been some logic and rationale behind it, I hope. And I'd like to guide you through our journey with IT certification. It started in 2016, and there were three reasons why we were looking to certify our learners' digital skills. One was to reward trainees. So we quite often got asked by staff, because we were dealing primarily with staff at that stage, for a training certificate. But I was reluctant to offer that type of certificate because I don't place much value in them myself. Because they don't really certify much. They certify that you've turned up to the training, that you've sat in the training room, and maybe if you're lucky you've had a buffet lunch. But those types of attendance certificates don't certify that you've learned anything. So it's not that I didn't want to offer certification, it's just that I wanted to find a credible and authentic way of certifying our learners' skills. The second reason was to develop deeper learning. I was a bit concerned whether the skills that were being developed in the training sessions, whether our trainees would be able to replicate them a week later, a month later, 3 months later. They certainly learned stuff during the training session. They were able to solve the problems that we set them, for the most part, in the workbook exercises and so on. But was it just surface learning? Or had it actually been cemented, and were they able to apply that further on? So we wanted to develop longer form courses that fostered this idea of deeper learning. So both of those reasons are equally applicable, I think, for staff and students. But there's one reason that trumps both of those in terms of students, and that's employability. So like it or not, a big part of university's role today is to prepare students for the world of work and to help them find a job. So the way I position it to my students is, virtually every job out there says that you need good IT skills, good digital capabilities. So when applying for jobs, everyone says, oh, I have excellent IT skills. I am proficient in Office. But everyone says that on their application form. If you've certified your skills in some way, you'll be able to say, I have excellent IT skills. I am proficient in Office, as demonstrated by, as exemplified by, as proven by gaining the IT certification. So those were our reasons for offering certification. So we started looking at the different options. We looked at ECDL, but we felt it was a little bit too generic, a little bit too long, and a little bit too simple, to be honest. We looked at some other offerings from the British Computer Society. They have an ITQ flexible certification that essentially allows you to build a certification by choosing different modules and tailoring it to your needs, which was quite appealing. Likewise with digital badges, the appeal of those is that you can basically set your own curriculum. So we explored those. But it was Microsoft Office Specialist that we settled on. For two reasons really. Well, three reasons. One is that it was an authentic and credible source of authentication. Okay? Microsoft certification everyone knows Microsoft, there is some credibility behind that. But it was also relevant to the skills that we were teaching, because we already had an Excel training course for our staff. That was one of our most popular courses. And the topics in that training course we had selected because they're the skills that our staff need at Cardiff Met to perform their roles. And all the skills on the course that we were already delivering were also in the MOS curriculum. There were some additional ones, but they were all relevant. There was nothing irrelevant in the curriculum. So for those of you who don't know, by the way, Microsoft Office Specialist is a Microsoft qualification program that certifies expertise in the different Office packages. So it was relevant and it was proportionate. So we estimate that it's about 25 to 30 hours of learning. So we could run it over the course of a term. The exam is 50 minutes long, so it's not too onerous, and it's not too trivial as well. So it was relevant and proportionate, and we thought it would be a good match for our training. But we wanted to be sure, so we ran a pilot project, a formal Cardiff Met project, to evaluate Microsoft Office Specialist. We selected a cohort of staff, you can see them there, and we tried to select staff from different schools, so we had at least one member of staff from each of the 5 academic schools, different roles, and different digital capabilities. So when they applied to join the course, we asked them to complete a self-evaluation form to evaluate their digital skills and their experience with Excel. And we picked some who had a lot of experience, medium, and some low experience as well. So we delivered the course purely face-to-face. 5 half-morning training sessions delivered over the course of the spring term 2017. So one every fortnight, 3.5-hour session. And we stuck with our tried and tested and well-received teaching methods of exposition, demonstration, and then plenty of practice. Part of what made it successful, according to the evaluation, was the nature of those demonstrations and those practice exercises. We used Excel spreadsheets from across the university, so we sourced them from various different staff, from various different systems, things like the student system, the finance system, the Qualtrics survey platform, Moodle. So we got all these outputs from those systems, and we based our demos and our practice on those spreadsheets. So staff were dealing with data that they were used to dealing with in their everyday roles in scenarios that would be familiar to them. We tried to contextualize it as much as we could to the cohort, which was Cardiff Met staff. So the evaluation identified that as being valuable. Another thing that was valuable was what we called CMet Excel projects that we created. And we complemented our face-to-face training with these projects in order to foster that sense of deeper learning. So they were essentially homework. We didn't call it homework because we didn't want it to sound too much like secondary school. But that's what it was. They were projects that they needed to complete outside of the training sessions to cement that learning and bring everything together. And for those of you who've done a MOS, you may recognize the sort of interface. We gave them a spreadsheet to work on, an overview of the context, and then a series of tasks to complete. So this is very similar, but not identical for copyright reasons, to the MOS exam. So we were giving them experience of the exam early on, but we were still contextualizing it and using relevant examples for them to solve. So that was identified as being valuable. Another tool that was identified as being valuable was the GMetrix practice software. So we used this towards the end of the course and used it as a mock exam and practice exams for them, again, to get as much experience of the exam as they could. So the advantage of GMetrix is that it does all the assessment for you. So when we asked them to complete the CMet Excel projects, they submitted it through the Moodle module, which we set up. and we had to grade it as the course team and give them feedback. So that had the advantage of the relevant examples. GMetrix had the advantage that it grades it for you, and they get their results straight away. So those two resources were the main two resources that were identified as being valuable in terms of the training. As I said, we ran it as a formal project, and we evaluated it using Kirkpatrick's evaluation model. The reaction to the training was very good. They found it useful. They found it relevant. They even enjoyed the course. At level 2, we evaluated the difference in learning. So in the very first session, we sprung a GMetrix mock exam on them and tested their abilities at the beginning. So we had their self-evaluation data, but we wanted to be sure what they were telling us matched up. So we took that GMetrix practice data as the baseline and their final exam results as the and then measure the difference in order to determine whether they have learnt stuff. And they had. The difference in mean mark was significantly increased from the practice to the final. At level 3, we evaluated behaviour. Have they changed their behaviour because of what they've learnt? Are they still using the tools and techniques that we taught them in their roles? And they were. They were using them in their everyday roles, and they were finding them effective tools. And there were a couple of feedback comments on that questionnaire that were really nice. Not only were a couple of members of staff still using the tools and techniques themselves, but they'd informally trained up a couple of their team in some of the more useful tools that they covered. So that was nice, sharing the knowledge and skills outside of the classroom. So we wanted to build on the success of our MOS Excel course for staff and start offering it for students. But this was the summer of last year, and students were on exams or had already gone. So we looked at what else was on the schedule for us. And we were intending to run our Outlook course for staff again. So our Outlook course doesn't focus on the basics of Outlook. It focuses on the underutilized tools in Outlook that can significantly improve productivity. So things like quick steps, search, flags and tags, search folders, search refinements. So these tools save 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds every time you use them. So it's not much individually, but cumulatively it makes a huge difference in terms of productivity. So like Excel, we had selected these topics because these were the tools that were relevant to our staff. And again, everything that we were teaching was on the MOS Outlook curriculum. We reckoned it covered about 40% of the curriculum. So I thought, right, well, let's run the course as is. We'll explain a bit about what MOS is and why it will be beneficial to you. And then we'll let the trainees complete the rest of the learning themselves. We'll give them the textbook. They can read through the textbook, and then they can certify their skills to the MOS Outlook exam. But then I read the textbook, and I realized, although it was good, you'd have to be pretty motivated in order to read through 100 pages on Outlook. So I was looking for a more engaging way of delivering this training. These books, by the way, are available on the Imagine Academy from Microsoft. I'm sure many of you already subscribe to that, but I would recommend it because you get the study guides for all of the MOS exams, you get the Microsoft official courseware. The textbooks are good. The lesson plans and resources for teaching are not so good. But it's cheap, relatively speaking, so I would recommend subscribing to that if you don't already. But although it's a good reference guide, it's not a good way of delivering training. So we were looking at other ways of delivering it. I didn't want to set up additional face-to-face sessions on things, because it covers some of the basic stuff, truly basic stuff, creating an email, formatting text and so on. And unlike Excel, there is a little bit of stuff in there that is irrelevant, mostly. So I didn't want to deliver that through face-to-face. So I thought e-learning. Let's build some e-lessons using one of my favorite tools, Adapt Builder. So I am a big fan of Adapt Builder. it creates responsibly designed, modern-looking e-lessons. So it has a range of different components, things like narratives and graphic hotspots and video and questions, different types of questions. And it creates really engaging, or it can, if you can wield it well, like any tool, I guess. It can create really engaging e-lessons. So we get Adapt Builder through our subscription to Learning Pool, who host our LMS for staff. But Learning Pool develop the software and release a version to the open source community. So if you can, or if you can get your IT teams to install that on your web servers, you can set up an Adapt development environment and create your own e-lessons using it for free. So that's what we did. We created 4 lessons using Adapt on Outlook. We combined some of our own materials, we wrote our own stuff. We used some of the Microsoft videos that are freely available on the help pages, branded as LinkedIn Learning, but the free version. And we also used some of the Panopto video recordings from the face-to-face training session. So all of our training sessions are recorded using Panopto. And in the Excel course, this was again identified as being a useful tool, because we ran 5 face-to-face training sessions. Naturally, not every member of staff is going to be able to attend all of them. So the ones that they missed, they're able to review the demos using Panopto, and likewise use it as a revision tool. So back to the Outlook course, we recorded the face-to-face session using Panopto, and I embedded some of the demos into the e-lessons. I wouldn't do that again because it felt a little bit jarring, because the way you design e-learning is different from the way you design face-to-face training. And when the two were brought together, it felt a little bit, as I said, jarring. And it made me realise how much I can ramble on sometimes, which is not too bad when you're delivering a face-to-face training session. But when you've got a video that you're trying to consume as part of an e-learning course, a 5-minute demo is too much. So I'm going to review this material and update it for the autumn term, get rid of the Panopto embedded videos and either create our own or use some of the LinkedIn Learning stuff. But the Outlook course was a success as well. We had 11 staff start the course, 8 of them took the exam, 7 staff passed it. With the Outlook, with the Excel, we had 12 staff start the course, 11 take the exam, and 10 pass it first time. So it was slightly lower in terms of starting numbers compared to exam numbers. It's hard to determine why that might be the case in such a small sample, but it may have been something to do with the lack of face-to-face interaction with just that one session and the rest delivered through e-learning. Or it may be just that Outlook isn't as interesting and as relevant as Excel. So this was the summer of last year, and now we really did want to focus on students. We wanted to develop an Excel course, follow best practice, and embed it into academic programs. So we were looking for a cohort where this might be appropriate. And we found one, the sports and performance analysis students. The lecturer for that course was already delivering Excel training as part of her teaching. And of course she was contextualizing it in the context of performance analysis. So it wasn't Excel, it was analyzing the performance data using statistical methods and using Excel as the tool. So this was ideal. The intention was to have her continue doing that basically as she saw fit. And we'd come in for a session and explain what MOS is, explain the benefits, and introduce the e-learning. And provide any support that may be deemed necessary through workshops or whatever. That was the intention. Unfortunately, for time reasons, organisational reasons, political reasons a little bit, that didn't come to fruition, unfortunately. But we recognised the value of MOS for students, so we were looking for a backup. And we found a backup in the form of business and management studies students. So the program director there was very keen on offering MOS to his students. He recognised the value that particularly business and management study students would gain from being proficient in Excel and the employability benefits of having that certification. But it wasn't as embedded as we'd intended for the sports performance analysis students. So we had to run the sessions on a Wednesday afternoon. They were optional, and they didn't use the same examples that we would have set up for sports performance analysis. The examples had to be a little bit more generic. But again, it was well received. We started off with 35 students. We got 28 taking the exam, 21 passed it first time. We had a couple of people pass on the resits. It wasn't plain sailing all the way through. Halfway through the course, I was thinking, this hasn't worked out so well. We were looking at the engagement numbers on Moodle, and they weren't, the amount of time being tracked from the SCORM activity was pretty low. Of course, one of the benefits of offering training through e-learning is that they can complete the learning anytime they want. And that's what they chose to do, a lot of them, about a week or two before the exam. But it all worked out well in the end. So that took us up to Christmas. Our next priority was away from MOS and was relating to SharePoint and document management. So our second most popular course for staff was managing documents using SharePoint and OneDrive for Business. We were upgrading our SharePoint installation from SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2016. So I needed to update the training, but I wanted to employ the same approach that we took with the Excel course and offer a way of certifying these SharePoint skills and offering a more longer form course to ensure that deeper learning is occurring. So we're looking at a way to certify SharePoint skills. There used to be a MOS SharePoint course for SharePoint 2013. There isn't one for SharePoint 2016. So we thought, open badges. We'll design an open badge scheme and use that to certify skills. But the challenge there is building value into open badges. Do staff perceive an open badge or a digital badge as valuable? We think they would be able to if we promoted it right, which we would do. If we built it into staff performance reviews, which was the intention. And if we did things like linking system access to getting the digital badge. So the highest level badge that we proposed was a SharePoint Power Admin badge. If they got the SharePoint Power Admin badge, they were able to have site collection admin rights if that was appropriate. But it's that challenge and that resource required to make this seem like a credible certification. With Microsoft, you already have that. So that was one reason why we haven't done this yet. Another reason was technical. Our upgrade from 2010 to 2016 was taking longer than we like. Another reason was strategic. So we had a new Vice Chancellor about 18 months ago, I think, maybe 2 years ago. She wrote a new strategic plan. And one element of that strategic plan is Cardiff Met Edge. So these are the ethical, the digital, the global, and the entrepreneurial skills, knowledge, confidence, resilience, and experience, can't believe I remembered all of those, that all of our students are supposed to develop whilst at Cardiff Met. So this Cardiff Met Edge is supposed to complement academic programs to ensure that we create well-rounded individuals that are employable. And this was great because digital was up there in plain sight. And that wasn't the case with the old strategic plan. But we're in a bit of a quandary now because these Cardiff Met Edges are supposed to apply to all Cardiff Met students. So we're going back to MOS and we're thinking, if we offer it to students now, what are we going to do? Are we going to embed it into academic programs and follow best practice? Or are we going to try and scale it up and offer it to as many Cardiff Met students as we can. And that's the approach that we chose this year, in 2018. We offered the Excel course as an extracurricular course in Enhancement Week, which is the first week in January this year. And again, it was very popular. We had, despite the limited marketing around Enhancement Week, which we would have hoped would have been better, we still had a full cohort of 24 students at our Kincoy campus and 16 at our Llandaff campus. So that's the approach we took last term. In future, this term we've offered Excel again, but employed more of a flexible approach because of the exam season. We aren't structuring it over the course of 10 weeks. We're giving them the option to take the exam in either June, July, or even September. So if they want to develop their skills over the summer through our e-learning, they can do so. So that's that's one course we've run this year. We've also developed the PowerPoint course. So I don't think I told you how we're actually delivering this for students. It's all based around e-learning. So we've developed 9, in the case of Excel, CMet lessons. Each of those lessons comprises of a adapt e-lesson and then practice projects using the interface I showed you earlier at the end of each section. So that forms the core, and it covers everything that they need to know to develop their skills and pass the exam. And we've complemented that with what we call key concept sessions, where we focus on the most relevant and the more difficult parts of the curriculum and deliver that through face-to-face. So for students who prefer the face-to-face approach, they have that option there. For students who want to study it all in their own time, they have a comprehensive course as well. So that's what we're doing this term, the MOS PowerPoint course. We're running that at the moment alongside Excel. We intend to run the Word course. I've been speaking to the IT advisor and help desk teams, and they've been saying that students are coming up to them looking very stressed and upset about page numbering and table of contents. These aren't things that students should be stressed about. They should be stressed, or they should be concerned about the contents of their assignment, not the tools that they need to create them. These tools should be second nature to them so that they don't have to worry about that. And that's another thing that MOS does, is it not only tests your knowledge and skills with regards to this software, but also the fact that you can use it efficiently as well. So it does become second nature. So we're going to develop the Word course for next academic year. But the next course on our agenda is the Microsoft Technology Associate scheme of courses. So these are slightly higher in terms of level, and they're more technically focused, and they're also longer. So we're developing a Fundamentals of Web Design course that will lead to the MTA for HTML and CSS. I'm very excited about this course because these web skills, being able to express yourself by creating websites, editing websites, are really a key digital capability. So that's our plans for the immediate future. And I've been saying throughout that our courses were successful. We had a lot of students sit in them and a lot of students taking the exam relatively as well. Part of the reason for that may be because we offer them for free. So we don't charge our staff or students for the training or for the exam. So we don't get any exam revenue from charging for the exam, but we do have benefits to Cardiff Met. So you may have noticed when I was talking about evaluating the MOS Excel course, I said we'd evaluated at all 4 levels of Kirkpatrick's model, but I didn't mention the top level, the benefits to the organisation. There are key benefits to the organisation. By students being able to use these tools more effectively, they're able to complete their assignments to a higher standard. By being more confident with the software, they're less likely to be stressed about things like page numbering, and therefore less likely to drop out. By being able to prove their digital skills, they're going to be more employable, thus improving our graduate employability rates. Now, each of those benefits are either small or unlikely to occur at an individual level. But that's at an individual level. Much like the Outlook tools, where the benefits are time savings that you gain by using a tool, The individual benefits are small, the individual savings are small. But taken together, the cumulative savings, the cumulative benefits to Cardiff Met are significant. Thank you. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions?
Like many institutions, we don't have dedicated IT trainers at the moment because, in their wisdom, they got rid of them some time ago. I'm interested in the e-learning packages that you're doing, because obviously Microsoft produced their own set of e-learning stuff.
Yeah.
Did you produce e-learning because actually you wanted to contextualize it, so that's what you did above the Microsoft training that's already out there?
Yeah, precisely. We have access to the Imagine Academy, and there are some videos on there for the MOS courses. I know a lot of people subscribe to Lynda. But even if we subscribe to Lynda, we wouldn't focus our training on pure video training. We would combine it in a module, contextualize it, and crucially add that practice to it. Because for me, video training is not training. It doesn't develop those deeper skills. It's good for just-in-time learning. So if you need to know a skill, as a one-off thing, it's great for that. But I don't expect people for those skills to be replicatable later on through video.
How many trainers do you have, actually?
So it's me primarily developing the training and delivering. And we have a bit of a complicated setup where two of the IT support teams, so the second level support team, deliver some of the training. So they have sort of their niches. So one of them's good with Excel, one of them's good with PowerPoint, one of them's good with SharePoint. It's not a situation that's ideal. We're hoping to get another permanent trainer so that they can specialise in training rather than having to split their skill set over support and training. But yeah, so it's about 1.4 if you have to say. Elaine.
I'm coming. We need a throw mic.
So you were talking about certifying the SharePoint course, and you talked about the Open Badge scheme.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit more about your discussions? You said you wanted to link it to the PDRs. So could you tell us a little bit more about that at all? Who you discussed it with, HR, and how you went about
I can tell you that we discussed it with our organisational development team. In terms of actually implementing that, because the training has been delayed, likewise those discussions have been delayed a bit. But what will help, hopefully, on our new digital strategy to complement the overall strategy is the development of a CPD framework in terms of digital capabilities for all staff. So that is on the strategy. It's written there in text, so it's something we have to do. And obviously we need, as we saw yesterday from Hertfordshire, having the support and the direction from above is something that will be key to that. So once we have that in place, that will be the mechanism for embedding it into SPR.
Are there any other questions? I'm coming.
A long time ago we looked at this, and I remember it being very expensive and very onerous in terms of if things were updated, if things changes, and obviously in those days that would be like Microsoft would go from Microsoft 10 till 30. I know now it's different with Office 365, but the trainers would have to be updated again, and that cost money. There was quite a lot of money for having like a training centre where you could do the testing. And I remember looking at it, and it was very complex and very expensive. Has that changed?
It certainly isn't anymore. So the guys from Prodigy who are sponsoring today's event, please don't raise the prices, but it's a very reasonable charge. In terms of the exam centre, there's no cost to that. You just pay for the exam licenses. In terms of updating our skills, we're a pretty good IT team, and we can update our own skills without having to, without external training or anything like that.
There's one question on Twitter, Gareth.
Yes.
From Sarah, have you made your CMet courses available to those outside your university?
No. Partly because we want it to be part of the Cardiff Met experience. So the fact that this is a really good added extra to our Cardiff Met students, and partly because of the UCLan experience that we're saying it was really stressful and not very beneficial in terms of trying to charge externals. It just wasn't worth the effort. So we don't intend to make money out of it at all. It is a really good Cardiff Met Edge, element of the Cardiff Met Edge.
Thank you. Are there any more? Oh, a couple of questions at the back. Probably got time for one more.
Can I just ask how you would how would it be possible to scale this up to a much larger number of students? If you're talking sort of maybe 40 students,
Yeah.
then
So
if you're
I think
thinking about blended learning and face-to-face as well.
Yeah. So I think the approach that we've got will work really well in that the e-lessons cover everything they need to know. So what we want to do in the autumn term is cast the net really wide and have a load of initial sessions, because they're the only compulsory ones. They come along and figure out what they need to do. So that if students do drop out, which clearly is not desirable, then we have plenty of people starting it and therefore a reasonable amount taking the exam in the end. I'll say it's not desirable. One thing I do tell the students is don't let it interfere with your academic programs, because it should complement them, not detract from them. So that would be another benefit of embedding it into the courses, is that it certainly wouldn't interfere with them because it would be part of the course themselves. So going forward, if we have sufficient resource, we'd like to offer it extracurricularly. For those students who are keen, they have the option to take the course, and we'd then like to find as many cohorts as we could where we could embed it and take both approaches.
Thank you very much, Gareth. And we say a big thank you to Gareth.